Welcome back, everybody. I'm Avon Waters, pastelist. I work in wet pastels, soft pastels, and anything pastel. That's what this channel is all about. Today, I am answering a question I got from a fellow artist. We'll call her Kim. She had questions about some of the skips and jumps and the way some of her pastel paper was not taking pastel, and then when she used other pastels, it took it. And so we got into a discussion about how different papers, different manufacturers of pastel have different formulas. And so I thought, what better way than to share with you guys a quick little study that will look at how different papers do different things. And a quick way that you could take your scrap papers in the studio and scrap mat board even, that's one of the papers we'll be using, and use them for small studies, color studies, maybe small studies, 6x8s, 9x9s, 10x10s that you're working out composition. And you don't want to waste quality pastel paper, yet you want to be able to mix and add a certain number of layers. So we're going to explore first the different papers I'm using. They just are what I had around the studio. Use what you've got. Then we're going to explore a number of different pastel manufacturers and the pastels that they have. And lastly, I will go through and show you some close-ups of how well these things layered or didn't layer, and we'll have a quick little discussion of how, what you like may not be what I like. Just taking a few of your papers and copying this process at home will tell you a lot about what papers that I've got laying around can I use rather than using my expensive sanded paper or velour papers that you pay $3 or $4 a sheet for. Before we get started, I would be remiss if I didn't say, if you're liking this content, please hit the like button, share with other artists. Even if you're not subscribing's great, but that like button does a lot to let other people find these things when they do searches for different art techniques. So let's get started. Okay, this is the variety of pastels that I'm going to use. These are just some that I know what they are. There's a lot more pastel varieties, manufacturers. This is the Diane, I call it Tirage. Terrage, I don't know how it's pronounced. I've never heard anybody say it. This is New Art. These are typically considered a hard pastel. Mount Vision. Mount Vision is a popular brand some people use. It's less expensive than some of these others. This is the brand I use all the time. It doesn't have a label, but just from its shape in my box, I know that this is a Unison. This is made in England. Great America used to be made in Cincinnati, and I guess is now going to be made in Anderson, Indiana. And there's the Rembrandt, which they call a soft pastel, but it is semi-hard for many people. These two here, because the egg is a Sennelier, I believe, and this is a Sennelier number 177. I think it's called Forest Blackish Green or Blackish Green. It looks black, and in the video quality you won't see the green cast that it's got. But I'm going to be using these for this demonstration. Papers matter. It's all a matter of personal taste. This is some Strathmore pastel paper that about 8 years ago when I first started pastel after doing oils all my life, I bought a packet of this, so we'll be using a sheet of that. This is a piece of scrap. I think it's number 927 is the gray tone for this crescent board, illustration board, mat board. So I'll be using that. I also have Stonehenge White. All these paper manufacturers use a slightly different, they have different types of paper. For this demo and any demo you do, it doesn't really matter. This one you can see is 250 gram. I like a lot of when I have drawing papers to give me versatility if I want to use mixed media. I usually will buy a heavier weight paper. This is that pastel paper. I don't have any white left, so we're going to be using this kind of powdered blue out of that Strathmore box. Union Square is another drawing paper I use, and this particular piece is also very heavyweight. These drawing papers, some of them, not all of them, some of them have the same side. Some of them have a smooth side, which is more like a hot press, and the other side has a little bit more tooth. So if you're going to do this experiment with pastel papers to see if there's anything that you want to use for studies, or to go outside and just do sketches that you're not intending for sale but just for color studies, then just be aware of the side that you're selecting. One other paper I'm using, this has no sizing in it. This is an etching paper that probably 30, maybe even 30, well, I can tell you, it was in the early 1970s. So gosh, that's almost 50 years ago I bought this paper, about 100 sheets of it, large format, was planning to do etching, and that's why it has no sizing. But I believe it's in arches. It's 100% rag. These things were several dollars a sheet then. I can only imagine what they cost today. But I had 100 sheets of these, and I use these on a lot of my pastel studies just because I need to use this paper. I can't just go through life and have $1,000 worth of paper sitting in my drawer when I die. Okay, for this demonstration, I'm going to go across here and I'm going to create two swaths using each of these colors on each of these types of paper. And I'm going to have this first one that you see me doing now going across here. I am using kind of a light pressure, just enough. You know, if you're blocking something in outside in plein air or in the studio to do a quick little color study, then you would get a lot of skips and jumps. I'll try to take a close-up of these so you can see. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit larger space, and I'm going to press harder. In other words, whether it's the same color or you used multiple colors in an area, you're starting to fill up the tooth that's on the paper. And I can tell you right away that this pastel paper is the coarsest one I've got, so it's not going to be a surprise when it's going to have more tooth. So think of this illustration as, hey, I don't have to use expensive pastel paper. I can find some just regular drawing paper, whatever weight I like, and I can make my studies on this. This is the last one here. This is that etching paper that I'm trying to get rid of that I've had for 50 years. Anybody who does etchings out there will probably be, oh my God, I'll buy that paper. So they're having heart attacks right now. But I'll go through this, and like I said, this is just a light application, and we might do some blending here to, in order, I'm going to do the light application all the way across here, and I'm going to speed this up so you don't have to watch the tedious process, but I just wanted to explain what I'm showing here. And then I come back and there's a light application, so you would have an underpainting. Then maybe you pick a different color, maybe it's a tree and you're starting to fill in other greens. You would put some more applications on, and there's about 3 layers now that I've gotten onto that spot. Our goal here is to figure out how fast the tooth fills up with these different papers and these different types of pastels, because Rembrandt is probably the hardest of what they consider soft pastel, and I'm trying to keep, rather than go over it like I did here to illustrate, you could get 3 or 4 layers on a piece of paper. I'm trying to get to the point where it's almost saturated, so we can put some accent colors over this at the end, and you'll see how much, if we put 3 layers and some pressure on there, you'll be able to see how much these papers will take. And other than this one, they are not pastel papers. They are just regular scraps This is a scrap piece of mat board that came out of my drawer. These are drawing papers because I like to draw in pencil and charcoal, and so if I wanted to take them outside or just use them rather than an expensive piece of pastel paper that's sanded or that is like this Strathmore, there I go. I talked and I didn't do what I said. I got these too hard. I'm going to have to erase that. My trusty little, I've got a little stubby brush that is a blender. It's horsehair and the things are on it like that, that's round, and that is also a good eraser. I can't find it. But this is my trusty little chip brush. I'm going to get some of that off of there. Let's just remember, even though I've blended in and filled in some of the skips and jumps, it's still about equal to if I were to put this on here and blend with my finger. So you can see that, that it will still have some tooth in there. So you beginners, anytime you get too much tooth on a piece of paper, you can just brush some off and put new colors over it. That's the nice thing about pastel. So let's get back to trying to explain what we're doing here. So I'm going to shut this thing off and concentrate on making these light and dark applications. So here we go. 1, 2, 3 layers. Pretty dense, pretty dense. I'll do that all the way across. So be back with you here in a second after I speed this up. Okay, there's our test swatches for some different colors and different manufacturers on different paper. I can tell you just from the experience of doing this, and if you did this exercise with papers you have laying around and scraps you have laying around the studio, I can tell you now that the illustration board has the least tooth of all these. Now, illustration board varies. Some illustration boards have a lot more tooth, but this is Crescent, and it had the least tooth. So even putting down the light, I had to have a much lighter touch to get it light in here. The two pieces of paper that really responded well are the etching paper. You can see here, after applying the soft and then applying the equivalent of 3 or 4 layers of pastel, they could be different colors, but in this case we use the same color. You can see that I still have a lot of skips and jumps, and I'll try to put that close up in there. The other paper that was surprising to me, and I'd never tried it with pastel, is this Union Square. This paper is really smooth. It doesn't have a real heavy texture. It's a cold, I mean a hot press, and so it's not like the tooth on this feels actually on the Stonehenge feels like the tooth on the Stonehenge is either the same or even a little bit more than on the Union Square. But the Union Square seemed to not fill up the cracks and crannies when I press hard. Now, talking about the pastel brands when applying to this, this is one, as I said, I'm doing this video to help a friend who we had a discussion about the possibility of certain pastels leaving too much empty space, and she had the question about maybe it's the amount of pumice that's in a pastel. Well, Diane Townsend, the story goes that she created these with Wolf Kahn because Wolf Kahn wanted to do his outdoor studies using regular drawing paper and didn't want to use a bunch of expensive things, and so he would just use regular drawing paper, and he wanted a pastel that had a lot more pumice than some of the other pastels he was using. And so working with Diane Townsend, the story goes, this has more pumice in it than most of your pastels. So it will scratch the surface of any paper you use and actually create tooth as you're using it. I used this Diana Townsend tirage for these colors here. And it is soft, and it filled in even on the lower portions here, where lower pressure portions. It fills in amazingly fast, and you add pressure to it and it really will fill the tooth. But it's supposedly making scratches under the pastels, or underneath it on the paper. And if you're going over other pastels, it's the pumice is scratching through those layers of pastel, so that when you add pastel, you should be able to add more pastel after these 3 or 4 applications on this that I pressed hard on. So let's just test out Diana Townsend first with different colors. This is a Diana Townsend over a Diana Townsend. This is one of my favorite, which is Unison, and this is Mount Vision. You could do this with any pastels you've got, but let's just say we painted an underpainting outside or in the studio for a study, and we're wanting now, after we've done some work and we pressed and got 2, 3, 4 layers of pastel on here, let's see what happens when we try to add these pastels on a 4th or 5th layer on these surfaces. So let's just start out with the Unison, and it is taking this pastel readily. I'm just using mark making. This is Diana Townsend, and it is taking it in a different manner. It is actually blending. It's scratching off that layer under those layers underneath and blending this pastel with it, but it still takes it. And here is my Unison. I'll go over the top of that. And it's taking it. The Unison is being bolder than the Mount Vision over it. So let me work my way through these things, and we can do some comparison here at the end. So I'll fast forward as I do this once I figure out I'm done talking. So let's go across here. Since we started with Diana Townsend, let's go across here. This is on the Stonehenge. The marks are bolder than they were on the Union, and as expected, oh, wrong place. As expected, the pastel paper is just going to take way more than any of these. But that's not the goal. The goal here is to see how papers, scrap papers that somebody might give you will react as you decide to paint over them and use them for studies. That's the goal here, is to see how these things react. And I'm going to use the same order on all these things. So we'll come back here, the Diana Townsend. The Diana Townsend, again, on all these is mixing differently than the sticks that are, I don't know how much pumice is in any of these. So let's stick Diana Townsend over here on this etching paper. Whoops, I want to use the Mount Vision first and create some lines. Very similar. And again, this is pulling up that color underneath, because of that pumice is grabbing that color more than these others. If you like that, then you're going to be blending colors when you layer. If you don't like that, then a Diana Townsend wouldn't be right for you. So let me go ahead and do all these, and then we'll shoot some close-ups and talk about the findings. There's our application now with just mark making, using on the left-hand side of the heavier application, using the Mount Vision, and then using the Unison. Unison is not as soft as many pastels, but it's probably a little softer than the Mount Vision. So now let's add the Diana Townsend over these and see I'll try to shoot in a little closer and get a close-up so you can see how these are reacting with mark making over an almost filled tooth. So we're on like layer 5 or 6. If you consider the first layer being a wash that leaves a lot of space that you can add to, and maybe subsequent layers being a little heavier, but basically you're pressing pretty hard and you're filling almost all the tooth by the time you reach this second layer. And now we're adding another set of mark making, like you're at the point of the pastel where you're doing finishing and you want to put some highlights in, or you want to blend and mix some colors on the page. So that's what these are at this particular point. So let's get in close. So now let me use this other Diana Townsend color that I used earlier on in the demonstration, where I put Diana Townsend over Diana Townsend. And I'll go through, I'll speed up on time lapse, and then we'll take a look at how this behaves over the top of some of these. I'll try not to cover all the areas so you'll have a comparison. Now you can see what I've done is I've made mark making in here and then drug it out to the side so you can see the pure color in comparison. All of these papers, these drawing papers, mat board, all of these things took the additional layer of pastel. Now on some of the colors, the blending wasn't maybe what I would want if I was in the finish work or middle process of one of my outdoor paintings or studio studies. So in that case, again, our handy little brush or a stubby, it's real easy to come in here and just pull some pastel off and get a fresh color back over and on that tooth. Let me shoot some close-ups here for you. We'll zoom in here on some of these. This is the Union Square, and you can see how the colors mix. This is the Stonehenge, the Strathmore pastel paper, no surprises there. I mean, it's pastel paper. This is the Crescent mat board, and I was actually surprised. The Crescent mat board took all the pastel that I gave all these others. There's fewer skips and jumps down in here. There's that piece where I used the brush and took away some pastel and put pastel over it. So even if you were wanting more, there's the etching paper. It's just marvelous, that etching paper. Unless you don't like those skips and jumps, then you know that are heavy. It doesn't even have that heavy of a tooth. It's probably the heaviest tooth of everything up here except for the pastel paper. There you have it. If you're wanting an inexpensive way to do some color studies, some stuff you know that you're not going to sell, and who knows, if you did little 6x6 or 6x8s of a study, I've sold a number of those. I've sold the heck out of those for people who really can't afford several $100s for a larger finished piece. They love the spontaneity that some of these studies are. Well, that's it. I hope you got something out of that. And for my friend Kim, I hope that this furthers our conversation. And anybody else out there, if you've got questions or you'd like to see a demo, stick it down in the comments and I'll consider it for a future episode. So until next time, happy painting, and please hit that like button so others can find this content. So long, everybody.